So I'm talking about cinema again is kind of like that meme about a fork being found in a kitchen. Also, I do have two fans going in the background because it is still unreasonably hot in my bedroom and I don't want to sit here and sweat the entire video while I'm talking, so bear with me with that. But with the recent half off all Criterion Collection titles at Barnes & Noble, of course, they got me again. And basically anytime the Criterion Collection has a sale, I'm there. I have to get something. It's if you know how much Criterion Collection stuff, even just their DVDs are, you do get why I try to take advantage of their sales. And with their most recent sale, my DVDs finally came in, so I thought, why not just show off my whole entire Criterion collection? My, like, all this stuff I have from them. They're all DVDs because I only have a DVD player. And if you are unaware of what the Criterion Collection is, I'm just gonna read off the back of one of the DVDs I have, and it says, "The Criterion Collection is dedicated to gathering the greatest films from around the world and publishing them in editions of the highest technical quality with supplemental features that enhance the appreciation of the art of film." And, you know, sometimes they have stuff that might be, like, more mainstream that, like, the average moviegoer has heard about. 12 Angry Men, No Country for Old Men, those are, like, coming off the top of my head. The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro, I know is on there as well. And of course I can't think about, oh, Night of the Living Dead is also on there, which I have it here with me. But they also do have some pretty niche stuff, which I think that it's nice that they have that kind of balance. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about the movies I have here, and I also really want to emphasize I get all my Criterion DVDs when they have sales, because I do not want to spend $30 on a DVD no matter how much I love that movie. Anyway, I'm just going to start with what I have now, which is Todd Browning's Freaks, and then they also have two other ones in here, The Unknown and The Mystic. I got this just for Freaks, if I'm being honest, but I did see The Mystic. I have yet to see The Unknown. Freaks, if you don't know what Todd Browning's Freaks is about, it's about a group of mostly disabled circus performers in 1932. This was filmed in 1932. A group of mostly disabled circus performers finding out that two non-disabled members of the cast have a murder plot against one of the men in the circus named Hans, so that they can get this large amount of money, this large inheritance that he has. And Todd Browning actually I'm pretty sure he got blacklisted. Like, his career was ruined because he made Freaks, which, if you watch it today, is pretty insane. It's pretty ridiculous that he got blacklisted for this. There was a woman, I remember reading, there was a woman at the test screening who tried to sue MGM because she claims the stress that this movie induced in her caused her to have a miscarriage, which is insane. I did see The Mystic as well, and I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't really that attention grabbing for me. It wasn't really that interesting, but it was a silent film, and if you've never seen a silent film before, the interesting thing about them is they aren't actually, like, fully silent. They have accompanying music in the background, and The Mystic did have accompanying music in the background, but they also had these interesting, like, sound effects added within it. Like, if there was somebody, like, knocking on a wooden wall, or if there were people, like, running down the stairs, there would be those added types of sound effects, which I haven't seen before in silent films, which, granted, I haven't seen many silent films, but I just thought that was a very interesting thing. I just think that Freaks is a very interesting film. Next up, we have like probably the best movie I have ever seen before, 12 Angry Men. And I watched 12 Angry Men for the first time, I think it was probably last week, and then I immediately got it as part of a like kind of big purchase thing I was doing with the Criterion sale. If you've never seen 12 Angry Men before, it is about obviously 12 jurors going into a separate room to discuss the trial they're a part of, where a 18-year-old Spanish immigrant boy allegedly murdered his father, and they have to decide if the boy is innocent or if he is guilty, and if they convict him of being guilty, they sentence him to the death penalty. And I think this really touches on a lot of interesting and important themes, especially for the year that it came out in, 1957. It talks about, I guess, the kind of moral implications of, you know, the criminal justice system and how it is often unfairly used against people of color, especially during the 1950s. The use of the death penalty, how, you know, the life of somebody as young as an 18-year-old, who's essentially a kid, right, is put in the hands of 12 strangers. I think that also the characters in 12 Angry Men, just how each of them are played, how they're written, is very interesting, very thought-provoking. I really do believe that 12 Angry Men is the best movie I have ever seen. I highly recommend that you watch it, and if you don't want to watch it because it's in black and white, my response to that is grow up. Next one I have is actually a documentary from 1990 called Paris is Burning. Paris is Burning is a documentary about the New York queer, predominantly black and brown ballroom scene. If you don't know what the ballroom scene is, it's a place where many queer and trans people who can't, you know, freely exist in public society, especially in the 80s and the 90s, come together and kind of get to freely exist as themselves. There's a quote in the movie, I might be able to include it if I can find a video of it, where someone is talking about, you know, if you're trans or if you're queer, you can't be an actual executive out in the real world, but in the ballroom you can pretend to being an executive there. You can dress up as an executive. You can be whatever you want to be in the ballroom. And when you watch this, you do hear a lot of like slang used in the ballroom scene that has kind of come to the more mainstream, where lots of people know about it now. Something that kind of comes to mind is like voguing, throwing shade, mother, things like that. I do think Paris is Burning is absolutely phenomenal, and if you are somebody who's queer or trans, I think this is absolutely a must-watch for you, because Paris is Burning is just incredibly important, incredibly beautiful, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to try my absolute hardest to not go on like an 80-minute long rant about Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing and the amount of like effort and research and just beautiful artistry put into Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. Do the Right Thing is set on one block of Brooklyn's Bed-Stuy Do or Die neighborhood at the height of summer in 1989. And the main conflict of this is one of the community members is upset at a man who owns a local pizzeria in the neighborhood, who he's upset because on the wall of famous like Italian Americans in the pizzeria, there's no black Americans on the wall because, you know, this is a predominantly black neighborhood and he's not featuring any predominant black people within it. And this is kind of the seed, the seed that's planted that grows with the conflict over the movie. God, I really am trying not to rant about this because I just think it's so beautiful and well done. And especially a scene where Radio Raheem is showing off his rings, the love and hate rings, and just how Spike Lee took, because that scene, the idea of like the story of love and hate with the rings is originally from a movie, I think it's from 1959, called Night of the Hunter, and how Spike Lee took that original scene and turned it into his own interpretation of what it could be. I don't even know how to. I'm really trying to not rant right now. I really am trying to not rant. I really recommend that you see Do the Right Thing if you haven't seen it before. It is like 2 hours long, but it is very well worth the watch. Next one is Crash by David Cronenberg. If you know about Crash, you know it's a very infamous movie, and I do think that its infamy is deserved, especially because kind of the surface that Cronenberg puts. It is, there's a lot of sexual explicitness in Crash, but I think the importance of Crash is how David Cronenberg talks about and discusses the how modern technology and modern humanity have become so deeply intertwined with each other that they are basically inseparable at this point. That the and this was made 1996, and even then David Cronenberg understood that you really can't separate modern humans and modern humanity from the technology that we use, even with something like cars. I think that there's a really interesting symbolism behind cars both being this very durable and sturdy, but also at the same time extremely fragile and malleable and changing and shifting, and how that really does parallel the human body. Definitely think, do your research before you watch Crash. Definitely maybe find a couple clips online and watch those before you watch Crash, because it's very infamous for a reason. Next up, we have another very interesting movie that this was personally in my Letterboxd top 4 for a while. Sex, Lies, and Videotape. It came out in 1989. This is about a woman named Anne, her sister Cynthia, Anne's husband John, and John's best friend from college, Graham, and how their lives kind of all meet back together when Graham moves back into town. I think the discussion that Steven Soderbergh, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, the discussion he provokes with Sex, Lies, and Videotape about how people discuss relationships and how even, you know, seemingly very open, positive people about, you know, the relationships they have, how even they kind of present this hesitancy or this coldness when talking about it. I think there's a lot of really interesting shots in Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I think it really does shine mostly, though, with the dialogue and how the characters are played. James Spader is in it, and if you know me, you know that I really love James Spader. Anything he's in, I am going to be interested in watching it. Sex, Lies, and Videotape, again, highly recommend. This one is fairly more mainstream. I'm pretty sure most people have heard about it. The Virgin Suicides, the film adaptation of Jeffrey Eugenides' novel, which I also have, and which I also really love. This is made by Sofia Coppola, and if you don't know what it's about 5 girls living in a Detroit neighborhood. I'm pretty sure late 70s, early 70s suburban Detroit, and it's the story of these girls told from the perspective of a group of boys who live across the street from them. I think that Sofia Coppola, what she does very wonderfully is she takes the unreliable narration of the novel and she adds this kind of pastel, light, fluffy, cotton candy-esque, like layering kind of shell over the story happening that kind of distracts the viewer from the real horrible tragedy of what these teenage girls had to go through and how they weren't even able to tell their own story. I think Sofia Coppola did a very, very wonderful job with this. I'm not very familiar with her work. I've only seen The Virgin Suicides and then Marie Antoinette. Those are the only two films of hers that I've seen. But I think that this is very amazing, very wonderful. Especially, I think this was her debut. Yeah, it was her debut. The Virgin Suicides, if you have yet to see it, I highly, highly recommend that you do see it. Then we have the Before trilogy, which I feel like hopefully most people have heard about. If you haven't heard about it, it's an American and I'm pretty sure a Parisian woman meet on a train in Austria, and they both have one night as like a layover in Austria that they decide to spend together. And then the other two movies, that's the first movie, and then the other two are about them catching up several years later. I think of all the romance movies or movies that have romance in it, the Before trilogy has, what it really masters is this type of emotional intimacy and connection and just absolute chemistry that the two main characters have together. Ever since I saw the second movie, Before Sunset, the final scene has just stuck in my head and I haven't been able to get it out since. The Before trilogy really does make you believe in true love. I cannot highly recommend this enough. The Before trilogy is so spectacular and it's so amazing, and I really, really do love it just so very, very much. And I will never stop highly recommending it. Then we have another very well-known, but I don't know if a lot of people have actually seen it, movie, Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero. A lot of people credit this as creating the modern day zombie, which is true, but I don't even think they use the word zombie in this. Night of the Living Dead, if you are unaware of what it's about this small group of people in Pennsylvania who come together at the start. Like I'm pretty sure most of them are strangers. And they all kind of come together at this remote, isolated house at the start of like the zombie apocalypse, basically. And it's very interesting meditation about, you know, political tensions happening in the 60s, because this came out in 1968. Political tension in the 1960s, you know, differing ideas of power, what should be done in these types of situations. And I think Dwayne Jones, who you can see here, his role in Night of the Living Dead, originally his character, I'm pretty sure the name of his character is Ben. He wasn't written with a certain race in mind, but casting a black man, especially in 1968, as this very main important role within Night of the Living Dead creates this, I guess, unintentional extra layer to talk about when discussing Night of the Living Dead. And it has a very interesting reputation, as, you know, that's kind of held up to this day about being this huge, crazy, shocking, disturbing film, which I'm sure at the time in 1968, it absolutely was. It helped create the like modern day rating system, but I think the graphicness doesn't exactly hold up today, but what does hold up is the kind of discussions that it spurs on and the ideas that it leaves the viewer with. Again, this is filmed in black and white, which I'm pretty sure George Romero talked about how like film in color was widely available at this time, but it was a lot cheaper to just produce it with black and white. Again, if you are hesitant to watch this just because it's in black and white, my response to that, grow up. Because Night of the Living Dead is a very important, like historically important, very interesting, still in my opinion very relevant film to be talked about, to be seen, to be discussed today. The next one is by my personal favorite director of all time, the great, amazing John Waters. This is Female Trouble. It's one of his earlier films when he was still making like underground exploitation films. I personally have a preference for his later work, but I still do think Female Trouble is a very spectacular, very amazing like encapsulation of John Waters' early work. It's not as shockingly graphic as Pink Flamingos, but if you want his kind of more early classic exploitation style, this is a very great place to start. Female Trouble follows the story of Dawn Davenport from, you know, her teenagehood, how she was just, you know, a basic teenage delinquent, and how she progresses over life to the point of being, you know, sentenced to the death sentence via electric chair. There's so many funny, quotable, interesting lines and scenes and things from Female Trouble that is so amazing. I think just all the entire cast of Female Trouble really does pull this together, but I think Divine, his role as a drag queen, just especially ties this whole thing together. And if you are ready for the more shocking exploitation early work of John Waters, Female Trouble is absolutely a great place for you to start. And for the last one I have here is 1977 House. This is a Japanese film, which I have to say this again, if you are hesitant to watch this because it has subtitles in it and you don't want to read subtitles while you're watching it, grow up. Just grow up, because House is a very wonderful movie. I think it's very visually amazing. I think the story is just, it's really the visuals. I keep thinking about the visuals of House and how beautiful and how stunning it is and how greatly I think it's put together, but also the turning point in the film where you start off with this very light, airy, soap opera-esque story with these candy-colored, pastel, like, fun, playful, like, images and stories, and then you get to the scene where Gorgeous is looking in the mirror. And if you've seen House, you know what scene I'm talking about. Gorgeous looking in the mirror, and it all just kind of shatters, you know, that veneer over the first part of the movie cracks, and it really does show you the horror that lies within House as a film. House is about a Japanese girl, I think she's, not sure how old she is, but I'm pretty sure she's like high school age, and it's about a summer trip she takes with her friends to her aunt's house in the Japanese countryside, and I think it's like the stay, like the first 24 hours of the stay that they have there. I think that House is just very interesting, very spectacular. It's 88 minutes, which I think is hour 28 minutes, I'm pretty sure. I love House very much. I've seen a fair share of Japanese cinema, and I think House is probably, off the top of my head, House is probably one of the best things of one of the best Japanese films I have seen before, and I highly recommend that you seek it out and watch it, because it is a very, very spectacular movie. And that is all I have in regards to my own personal collection of like Criterion DVDs. I'm very, very happy and very, very lucky that I was able to get these. There are various sales over time, and I really do appreciate whoever stuck around to the very end to watch this.